Call the Westfield, Washington Township Advisory Plan Commission order for November 16th, 2020. Will the staff please call the roll and note the presence of quorum?
Ms. Bergman?
Here.
Mr. Graham?
Present.
Mr. Horke?
Here.
Mr. Johns?
Here.
Dr. Kelleher?
Here.
Mr. Maui?
Here.
Mr. McCarty?
Here.
Mr. Schmitz?
Here.
Ms. Boljarek?
Here.
Have a quorum.
Thank you. Next up is the approval of minutes for November 4th, 2020. Having had opportunity to review those minutes, are there any additions, corrections, or comments? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
This is Maui. I make a motion to approve the minutes from November 4th, 2020.
This is John, so second that.
I have a motion made by Mr. Maui, seconded by Mr. Johns, to approve the minutes of November 4th, 2020 as written. Will the staff please call the roll?
Ms. Bergman?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Horke?
Yes.
Mr. Johns?
Yes.
Dr. Kelleher?
Yes.
Mr. Maui?
Yes.
Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz?
Yes.
Ms. Boljarek?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Ms. Howard. Next up is the consideration and approval of the 2021 schedule of meetings and filing dates. Are there any questions, comments, or discussion on this calendar? Hearing none, Randall Graham will make a motion to approve.
Horke will second.
Motion made by Randall Graham, seconded by Mr. Horke, to approve the 2021 schedule of meeting and filing dates for the APC. Staff, please call the roll.
Ms. Bergman?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Horke?
Yes.
Mr. Johns?
Yes.
Dr. Kelleher?
Yes.
Mr. Maui?
Yes.
Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz?
Yes.
Ms. Boljarek?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We have several items that are up for consideration or forwarding and or approving this evening. Will the staff please review the rules and procedures for tonight's meeting?
Yes, due to the COVID-19 emergency as declared by the Governor of Indiana, the format and conduct of the meeting has been modified to comply with executive orders regarding the conduct of public meetings, public hearings, and public gatherings. Relevant portions of the Indiana Open Door Law have been amended or suspended during the pendency of this emergency. For all petitions, tonight's meeting will have the following structure. The department will summarize the petition and describe what action, if any, is necessary to be taken. Then the petitioner will be given up to 15 minutes to present to the Plan Commission. The president of the Plan Commission will call on each member to provide comments, questions, or concerns regarding the petition. The petitioner will then have a chance to respond to comments. A few comments for APC members and petitioners tonight. Please have your email accessible during the meeting so that you can receive any comments if they do become available, though there are no public hearings this evening, so that should not be an issue. Also, please mute your microphone when you are not speaking. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Howard. Next up is the consent agenda containing one item, 2011 DDP-27, Westfield, Washington Schools, Natatorium, YMCA. I'll entertain a motion at this time.
Horke moves to approve the consent agenda.
Victor will second.
Sorry, who had a second on that?
Victor.
Thank you. Have a motion made by Mr. Horke, seconded by Mr. McCarty to approve the consent agenda as written. Will staff please call the roll?
Mr. Graham,
Yes.
Mr. Horke,
Yes.
Mr. Johns,
Yes.
Dr. Kelleher,
Yes.
Mr. Maui,
Yes.
Mr. McCarty,
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz,
Yes.
Ms. Boljeric,
Yes.
Ms. Bergman.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Ms. Howard. Next up, our item of business, 2010-PUD-12, Bellcrest PUD.
Yes, good evening, members of the Planning Commission. For the record, Dane Crabtree with the Community Development Department. The item before you this evening is the change of zoning request for approximately 20 acres at the northwest corner of 186th Street and Shady Nook Road. As you may recall from the October 5th public hearing, the proposal is to rezone the property from AGSF1 agriculture single-family rural to a single-family attached planned unit development, which proposes a maximum of 42 paired ranch duplex homes. At the public hearing, the majority of the concerns from the neighbors included increased traffic and drainage. Since that meeting, the petitioner has added language increasing the architecture for buildings on the defined entrance and perimeter lots, a customized landscape plan for external street frontage, and entrance to the development, as well as added amenities. This item is eligible for recommendation this evening. Matt Skelton of Church Hill and Antrim is present this evening to give a brief presentation, and I will be available if there are questions of staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Skelton, it's all yours.
All right, can everybody hear me?
Yes, we got you, Matt.
Okay, great, thank you. Yeah, so we were last before you on October 4th. And since then, we have spent a lot of time focusing on enhancements to the home architecture, the lots, the plantings on the lots themselves, and perimeter treatments, really with an eye towards enhancing view sheds, the places most visible to passersby and folks within the development. With that in mind, the homes and the lots themselves, we have incorporated a requirement. We intend to build window trim, 4-inch window trim around all of the windows within the development. We believe this very much enhances the appearance of the buildings really from all aspects. We are also increasing the lot requirements. It's kind of interesting that the city's lot planting requirements are really geared towards single-family homes, but we are exceeding even those, even though these paired ranch homes may in some ways give the appearance of a single home. They'll essentially, each structure would have more than twice as much landscaping as a typical home under our requirements. The perimeter lots that are identified on your concept plan, Exhibit 5 of your materials, we have committed now to making sure that each of those homes has a minimum of a 36-inch brick wainscot around all sides of those structures. So no matter if to the extent that they are visible at all from outside of the development, that would be an enhancement that would be seen. In addition, the gables of those same perimeter lots would also have an enhanced aesthetic gable siding. It's shown on your screen right now. That's Exhibit 7 of your materials. Excuse me. And that shows how kind of break up those visible gable ends. And then at least one of the homes in each of the structures would have a projecting covered outdoor living area, and that's Exhibit 8 of your materials shows that, showing on your screen right now. There could be more than one, but that at least one of each of the two structures would have that enhancement. And then in addition to that, behind each of the structures, there would be 2 additional shade trees. And on those perimeter lots, that's really a drop in the bucket if you look at the perimeter lot landscaping, which we'll go over here in a little bit. Between that and the additional shade trees, there's quite a number of trees to be planted along that perimeter. We also have identified we refer to them in the ordinance as entrance lots. They're identified on Exhibit 5 of your materials with a darkened triangle. It's really just two lots that are immediately adjacent to the main amenity area when you drive in. I don't know if the cursor can show those 2 lots, but it's basically the easternmost lot on the interior island there of homes. We are proposing some enhancements to those 2 structures to the extent that they're visible through the amenity area landscaping that's shown. We would also have gable siding change, which is like we saw previously. It's on Exhibit 7 of your materials. We've also identified the south lots. We call them the south lots, but basically the lots that extend along the southern boundary of the Bellcrest neighborhood, identified with the darkened circle. Those will receive 2 additional shade trees in each backyard of those structures, which will complement the already existing vegetative screen and tree line that is along that boundary. And then there are also a couple of corner lots. We didn't bother identifying them with a symbol because they're self-evident where they are, but we will be including a 10-foot, a minimum of 10 foot in length planting bed with 6 additional shrubs planted along the side of those homes, just to break it up a little bit. In addition to that, we were asked at the last Plan Commission meeting to identify our tree preservation areas on the concept plan, and we have done so. And we've provided text that provides for that tree preservation in the UDO. Also along the south property line of Bellcrest is the potential future trail corridor that we spoke about last week or last month. And Dries, in our PUD ordinance, we've agreed not to disturb that vegetative area, at least to, while it's under our control. We will commit not to disturbing that area unless there's some extenuating circumstance like a utility extension or something. And then the street frontage landscaping, that's probably the most noteworthy addition to our materials. We, as I mentioned at our last appearance, we worked closely with Larry Hemp, who's the landscape architect who did the original landscaping for Bridgewater. And we've been impressed with the product of his work, and he's developed this plan to really enhance and dress up our perimeter frontage along our external roadway there. And I would say that I mean, this details the mounding we will be installing, the significant amount of trees and shrubs that will really create a beautifully designed landscaped view along the external street. And then it also provides a substantial buffer for the people who would ultimately live in the couple lots there, most closest to the perimeter. It's noteworthy, we've incorporated an amenity plan in the PUD ordinance that I think illustrates the quality and character of the amenities that we will be incorporating into the community. Really the orientation of that amenity area at the head of the boulevard when you pull into Bellcrest will really create an aesthetically pleasing impact, not only for those driving into the community, but also folks who are driving by that are able to peer down the entrance, the boulevard entrance. They'll be able to see that area. It won't be long till the plantings that are installed along Shady Nook will be really so dense and so full that you wouldn't even know the neighborhood was back there except for peering down the boulevard. So with that, Dries is really excited and planning to begin work on Bellcrest as early as it can next year. We have had a couple of late modifications that I'd like to cover with you, and this is just really as the result of a request that we received today. And so earlier today, we were asked if there were a way to extend an access easement from our Circle Drive to the area to the west that is shown on the concept plan as tree preservation area. And there is a location that we would be able to do that. And I might ask the staff or whoever's operating the cursor, just if you could put up Exhibit 5 just for a moment. And so along the western boundary, the western edge of Bellcrest, the straight line of buildings there, if between the third one down from the Stubb Street area, the third one down and the fourth one down, there is an area there that would lend itself very well to an access point. So unless we hear differently, we would plan to incorporate an easement access at that location. And then additionally, I just sent it not long ago because we just were able to pull it together, but had a request today to add some additional benches at strategic locations within the neighborhood, and we were able to accommodate that request. And we may have done it anyway, but we actually reflect it on a revised concept plan that was just emailed to I think Kevin and Dane and Corey. It may have been just Kevin and Dane, but if there's someplace else I need to send that, I'm happy to do it. I'm sorry for that last addition. With that, I think we would respectfully request your favorable recommendation, and we're happy to respond to any questions or comments that you may have.
Just real quick, Matt, this is Kevin. We did receive that email with the updated plan and are showing that on the screen right now.
Okay, it's small enough on my screen, I just can't see it. Oh, I see it. Yep, that's it. Well done.
All right, we'll go down the list for questions or comments. First up tonight is Dr. Kelleher. Any questions or comments?
No, thank you for doing those two things, Matt. I think you probably would have come to some of those anyway as you designed it. I do have one question. SFA up against SF2 or 1, I think requires a 30-foot buffer yard. I know you have a buffer yard along the northern border. On that southern border, is there going to be a buffer yard, or in lieu of that, trees preserved, or is that going to actually end up being a trail corridor?
Well, it could be either one. I mean, our concept involves preserving that 30 feet. We will be dedicating it to the city, and it may or may not ever become a programmed space. It would remain probably vegetated, I'm guessing. I can't speak on behalf of the city, but I'm guessing it would remain in its existing condition indefinitely until such time as a trail were actually designed. And that trail may or may not be located on that property. I mean, it could very well, but trails don't have to be straight, so it may meander around significant tree species, I'm guessing.
Sure. So basically, in lieu of a buffer yard, you are dedicating this to the city. Is that kind of the trade-off?
Well, that's what we're proposing, yes.
Okay. And then I have a question for staff. Is there land to the south of their southern border that is already been dedicated to the city for the future right-of-way?
Yeah, this is John Hale.
Hi, John.
I can confirm, yes, that there has been land from the development to the south that did dedicate land for a future 186th Street right-of-way.
Okay, but that's only for half of it, right?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. That's it. I don't have any more questions. I'm sorry, I didn't know if you heard me.
I can hear you, but we may have lost mission control.
Okay. Matt, are there a lot of trees in that southern border?
It's not a bad stand. There's a couple of thin places, and we have worked with the neighbors to the south to, we're going to be making some plantings on their property, so they have, more control, but it would be actually south of our property line on their property that will help fill those in
Okay.
a little bit over time. But yeah, actually, it's not a bad stand.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Ms. Berkman, questions or comments?
Yes, thank you. So Matt, I'm sorry, can you just clarify for me how many kind of benches, or I don't know if Dries had considered doing swings or something throughout this? There's a really nice, of course, sidewalk, a lot of sidewalks, a lot of good walking areas. I know initially earlier today, and I see you've added this bench kind of to the southern tree stand here. It looked like just one bench in that entrance, which, by the way, I think the entrance looks beautiful. I think that looks very nice.
Thank you.
But are you envisioning not just one bench there? Is that going to be more of a gathering area with a few benches where neighbors could get together? I'm just a little unclear on this amenity, and then it was showing the one bench.
So there's a gazebo area, of course, that is at the main amenity area, and that of course is a gathering space, and that's shown on the plan before you. And then there were two other locations identified on the plan where we would install benches. There may be other places too, but at the very least we're committing to install a bench, both at the place that you indicated in that common area, kind of in that southeast corner. And then if you look at the western end of the neighborhood, in the side yard, on the east side of the north-south road. There's a bench indicated there at that location as well.
Okay. So I guess,
To follow up on your swing set idea, that would be exactly the opposite of what we're trying to do here. This is an active adult empty nester, and they really want to focus on trying to reinforce that without mandating, of course, an age restriction, but really trying to design this for folks who are more interested in passive recreation and less about swing sets.
yeah, no, I'm sorry. With this online, you didn't hear exactly what I said. I meant like swings that are like porch swings.
Oh,
so sorry about that.
Got it.
So yeah, some of the developers are doing that now instead of benches. It's actually like a porch swing in some of these areas. They're doing it downtown Carmel. So sorry, that's what I meant by that, not a swing set. I totally agree that wouldn't be appropriate here.
Got it.
So
No,
they can consider some of that, maybe between now, depending on the recommendation to council. I think that would be good to add some of that. And then my other question was just last time, I know the neighbors were really concerned about drainage.
Yes.
And I'm just wondering how that's getting resolved between the public hearing and what you've kind of worked on to this point.
Sure. So we will, in fact, drain to an offsite water detention facility west of our site. And it will be included within a drainage easement. And this is not uncommon. I mean, it may not be a thing that folks are used to seeing, but I mean, this exact same thing was done with the apartment community there at 161st and Spring Mill. They have a large water retention facility that will be located on Shamrock Springs Elementary School property. And it'll actually, focuses somewhat of an amenity in that location as well for the school. But anyway, so that's really what's going to happen, and then that water will eventually be discharged in the county into the county regulated drain system. Right now, I think the concerns of the neighbors had to do with during high rain events, the water, not just from this site. I mean, I'm sure there's water that comes from other places too, but the water from this site is not controlled. I mean, it just Mother Nature, lets it rain and it sheet drains across this property to the south and west, and really it ends up in the southwest corner of our site. By designing our facility the way we are designing it, it will actually take all of that drainage offline and out of that event problem. So it would be taken to a new spot in our retention in our drainage retention pond. It'll be collected there and then it'll be released at a controlled rate. And I think the problem that they're experiencing right now is really that uncontrolled runoff. It's not being detained and it's not being retained. It's just raining and it's running across the ground. So to the extent that any of their problem is created by sheet drainage from the Bellcrest property, Bellcrest will no longer be contributing to that problem.
Okay, thank you
Yep.
for that. And then just one final comment. I know you went through the beginning of those, the rear architecture standards and the side, and those are only applying to the 4 that are along Shady Nook Road, correct? Those pictures you were showing.
The perimeter, the ones identified with the asterisks along Shady Nook are the ones that the perimeter lot standards apply to. And then there's 2 lots that are identified as the entrance lots, which are the ones that are kind of right immediately west of the main amenity area. And that those have special requirements that apply to them. And then there were some other like additional landscaping being provided along the homes along the south boundary that have the circles on them. So there's really, it's three sets of standards that.
Right, okay,
apply.
so, yes, okay, so I'm clear on that. I just wanted to make sure everybody kind of was clear that those were only applying to those with that asterisk. So this is my last question, which is, could Dries consider adding one more to the north as you go around that curve? Because I think that that's going to be pretty visible from Shady Nook as you travel south along there, the rear of that one. So that's just a question if they would consider adding that upgrade to that unit as well.
And just, Kristen, you might look at the landscaping plan. That the buffer that we are proposing along there is incredible.
It is excellent, and thank you for saying that.
I mean, along that eastern property line or the northern property line, I mean, it's quite significant. What's the height of that mound?
10 feet, is it? No, it's not 5 feet.
5 feet. It's like, it's a 5-foot mound and it's heavily treed. And that was all, kind of negotiated with the neighbor to the north. So, I mean, I'm not trying to push back. I'm just saying you're probably never going to see that house. And if you do, it's going to be for a very short time.
Okay. Well, and thank you. That was my final point. Thank you for a very thoughtful buffer there along that AGSF1 neighbor to the north. So great job on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And that's it for me. Thank you.
Mr. Horke, questions, comments?
I'm good. No questions, no comments.
Mr. Johns, questions or comments?
Well, Matt, first of all, thank you for making the changes that you and Dries have made. I think it's a much better project because of those changes. I don't have any questions for you. I do have one question for Jonathan Nail. And I think Ginny kind of prompted me to ask this one, but I think, Jonathan, you mentioned that the property to the south of this project, they have given a little bit of land just in case that 186th Street connector is built as it was proposed. Is that correct?
Partially. So about halfway to the west, the western half of that south neighbor has dedicated right-of-way. The eastern half did not at this point when that section came through. It looked like, at least at the time, that a trail rather than a full roadway was probably more likely. And so there's, I would say partially, the neighbor to the south has partially dedicated a future right-of-way.
Okay, I guess my question is, I just want to make sure that if for some reason the city had decides to put the connector route through, will there be enough land between this possibly dedicated trail and what you have to the south to put the road in?
Yeah, I mean, I think if we chose to build that, I mean, the existing 186th Street, both east and west, is just a 2-lane road. There wouldn't be enough room to build out a larger roadway section, but to carry a 2-lane road through, yes, there would be enough right-of-way there to do so. I think actually doing it would be another story. I think there'd be a lot of pushback from residents and so forth. But yes, there would be room for a 2-lane road.
Okay, thank you, John. That's my question. I just want to confirm that. Thank you. That's all I have.
Mr. Maui, questions, comments?
I have none. Thanks, Randy, and thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Mr. McCarty, questions or comments?
I will just echo the sentiments for appreciation of attention to detail with adding extra benches and the amenity area, so as well as the buffer zone. So thank you for that. And that's all.
Thank you.
Mr. Schmitz, questions or comments?
No questions or comments. Thank you.
Ms. Spalgeric, questions or comments?
Just one, I think that has not been said yet. Luckily, everyone else has covered other concerns, and Matt is aware of my concern with this. In not having any street trees in this project, you've got a bigger problem, I think, with having roads, sidewalk, driveway, front load garage, and again, no specific requirement for any kind of trees in the frontage. When I talked to Matt, he did then tell me he would be willing to mandate one in, I believe, the front of each unit, so 2 per lot, I would guess. And I'd like to see that added in as a requirement.
We can do that. And frankly, there probably isn't room for anything more than that.
Just,
I
hey, Cindy, this is John Nail. Can I get a clarification on that? Would those trees be between the sidewalk and curb, or actually in the yards?
In the yards.
I was requesting front yard, given the fact that you couldn't meet it, with the way that this is designed.
Perfect. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
I'm glad you clarified that, Mr. Nail. I lived in Centennial, and the street trees were a nightmare, as the city knows, so.
Yep, we want to avoid a future situation like that. Absolutely.
All right, that's the conclusion of the roll. So at this point, I would entertain a motion.
Okay, we'll move to send a favorable recommendation on 2010 PUD-12 Bellcrest to council.
Would that be with the condition of the addition of the front yard trees?
I was just about to add that because
Yeah, and the benches, and the benches, this is Jenny, and the benches and the access to the tree preservation area between lots 3 and 4 on the western end?
absolutely. All 3.
Okay, I'll second that. This is Maui.
Right, I have a motion made by Mr. Horke, seconded by Mr. Maui to forward 2010-PUD-12 Bellcrest PUD to the City Council with a favorable recommendation with the 3 noted conditions on the record. Will you call the roll, please?
Yes, first I want to make sure we get these conditions correct. The first condition is to require 2 trees within the front yard outside of the right-of-way. A condition to add additional benches, and a condition to add access to the tree preservation area.
Pam, I think it's 1 tree per dwelling unit in the front yard, not 2 trees per, or 2 trees per structure, whichever way we put it. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Are we good?
Yes, Mr. Horke?
Yes.
Mr. Johns?
Yes.
Dr. Kelleher?
Yes.
Mr. Maui?
Yes.
Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz?
Yes.
Ms. Spalgeric?
Yes.
Ms. Berkman?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Carried.
Thank you very much.
Next item of business this evening, 2010-PUD-13, Caramore PUD.
Good evening, Commissioners. For the record, I am Corey Harris of the Community Development Department. Pulte Homes by Church Hill and Antrim requests a change in zoning for 40 acres at the northwest corner of Horton Road and East 199th Street from AGSF1 to the Caramore PUD district. The Caramore PUD is proposed to be similar in size and style to the Wilshire neighborhood, including a maximum of 83 dwellings with an underlying zoning district of SF4. The proposed ordinance specifies lot and architectural standards, a concept plan, architectural exhibits, character exhibits. This item has received its public hearing at the October 5th Plan Commission meeting. Since its public hearing, the ordinance has been updated with change of definitions, adjustments to the front building facade requirements and the side building facade requirements, added additional requirements for perimeter lots, and updated the landscaping requirements for minimum lot standards, perimeter lots, and common areas. This item is eligible for recommendation tonight. Matt Skelton of Church Hill and Antrim is present and plans on presenting, and I am available for questions for staff.
Thank you. Skelton, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, everyone. Again, Matt Skelton with Church Hill and Antrim with offices at 116 North Union Street here in Westfield. And I'm not sure if I mentioned this last time, but Randy McNutt with Dries Homes, just to be clear. Corey, I think you may have said Pulte Homes. It's Dries Homes. And we are, since we were last before you on October 4th, we've taken the discussion that we had to heart. We really haven't received any comments until today regarding the proposal, but did want to share. We've got a couple of things I think we may be able to do to accommodate some late requests here. So as I mentioned, the intent here is to really create a neighborhood that resembles Wilshire to a great extent. I mean, there really are no intentional departures other than, of course, the design of the community, the design of the streets and things. Excuse me. There have been some changes. I mean, the Unified Development Ordinance has changed a bit since the Wilshire project was approved, and as a result, there are some additional things we had to modify in the PUD, and thank you to Corey Harris for identifying a couple of them for us. Just to make sure that we're able to accomplish what we accomplished in Wilshire. So I can go into as much detail on that as anybody wants to, but it's really quite painful. Since we were last before you, we have updated our standards to really increase our architectural requirements and landscaping requirements, and specifically the road frontage area along Horton Road. So the amount of masonry that is required in order to qualify for using masonry in the point system that the city has. In the Wilshire project, I think there was a minimum of an 18-inch wainscot requirement, and we have increased that requirement to a 36-inch masonry requirement. We've also increased the minimum number of shrub plantings for all lots. Instead of there being 4, there would be 12 per lot. On perimeter lots specifically, we are committing to at least a 36-inch high wainscot on all sides of the homes, and those perimeter lots are identified on your concept plan. I believe it's Exhibit 5, if I'm not mistaken, of your materials. Correct me if I'm wrong, folks. But the concept plan identifies the perimeter lots with the asterisks. And as you'll note, I think there's 7 of the lots are screened by an existing vegetative screen, and I think you may have noticed in the narrative that we submitted in advance of this meeting that the clearing that had been observed by one of the Plan Commission members prior to our public hearing was actually performed inside the city's what is or will be the city's road right of way. For the purpose of extending water and sewer lines. So the tree preservation areas that we've identified on the concept plan are outside of that disturbed area. And so many of the homes, at least half of the homes, are screened by that existing vegetative screen, and then the other 6 or 7 lots will be supplemented by the street frontage landscaping plan that I'll get to here in just a minute. But in addition to the wainscot that is required on those perimeter lots that are identified, each of those lots will also, the homes on those lots will also include either a covered outdoor living area or a rear or a bump out area that is like the first story of the home, at least. And those are identified in Exhibits 7, 8, and 9 of your materials. I'm sorry, these are just 2D elevations, but I think it explains the picture from multiple sides what the difference is, just so the staff, when they're reviewing building permits, they'll be able to tell if we've included one of those items or not. And then in addition to that, on those perimeter lots, we would also include an additional shade tree in the rear yards, and that is over and above the perimeter landscaping that we'll get to here in just a minute. As requested at the last Plan Commission meeting, we also identified those tree preservation areas that I referenced earlier on the concept plan, and included provisions in the PUD for tree preservation. Let's see, the street frontage landscaping that I mentioned, that's probably, again, the most noteworthy change. We worked with the same landscape architect to design the landscaping frontage of the community along Horton Road, and that is in Exhibit 10 of your materials. And it's down to what trees and where they're going to be placed. So it's a pretty detailed plan. But this details an extensive amount of trees and shrubs and mounding that will be installed along Horton Road. It will really create a beautifully landscaped view along Horton Road, but it will also create just a wonderful buffer for the homeowners for those few homes, those 6 homes that would back directly up to that corridor. So the DREES, of course, is eager to begin work on Caramore as well as early as it can next year. We do have one addition that I wanted to share with you. We were asked, I think, by a couple of Plan Commission members regarding the incorporation of a playground, possibly. There is one within the Wilshire neighborhood, and that we weren't originally planning to have one, but we have been working with the county surveyor's office, and we believe that we're going to be able to locate this at the location identified on the plan that you see on your screen right now. And this was just submitted. This plan is exactly the same as you've seen previously. The only difference is the identification of the playground area. So with that, I think I'll stop and happy to respond to any questions, and we would respectfully request your favorable recommendation this evening after that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Skelton. First up will be Ms. Spalgeric. Questions or comments?
I do have a few, and again, I spoke with Matt about the majority of these prior to the meeting. One of them, in looking at Wilshire and comparing, there was a lot more requirements set forward as you had to do these, like on the front facade. And now it's moved to a point system. And there's a few things, especially concerning like the masonry and having the point system. There's a few things there that are now requirements, but yet still would be offered. It would qualify as a point in this plan. So I think there's a little bit of a disconnect there, and I'm sure it could probably be cleaned up before it goes to council if people would agree to that. And that's pretty much my biggest one right now.
Mr. Schmitz, questions or comments?
No questions, no comments, thanks.
Mr. McCarty, questions or comments?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Matt, because I was going to ask how many amenities were in this project. So I think the addition of the playground definitely is warranted. In talking about the trees, we briefly mentioned it last project. And just looking at the exhibit here, are there trees between the road and the sidewalk?
Yes.
Okay, so will those be taken care of by the HOA, or will those be given to the city?
The city engineer will personally take care of each of those trees. That's a joke.
I know,
yeah. No, those will be maintained by the HOA. This development would actually. No, I think he's talking about the internal streets. Are you talking about the internal streets, Victor?
Yeah, you see the white line right there, and then between the road and the white line for the sidewalk is the little, kind of green. Yeah.
Yeah, no, there will be street trees in compliance with the city's standards in this development.
Okay. Yeah, since Mr. Graham mentioned Centennial, I was just like, oh, well, that kind of got pointed out to me there.
Yeah, the difference on this one is that the city's revised street cross-section adds a significant amount of additional land between the street and the sidewalk. And so if you're going to do street trees, you have to have basically an 8-foot tree lawn, which is doable on a larger project. It's just when you're working on more compressed sites or, homes that are closer together, like an active adult community, it's just harder to accommodate that cross section. So that's not a problem in this community.
Okay, I just wanted to clear that up on my end, so thank you for that. And then just one last thing, with Horton Road or just any roads out here in the country that have been the same for all of my lifetime, I'm always kind of hesitant to bring higher density projects. So I appreciate this being under 100 lots, and I also appreciate the tree preservation area, and you guys are really trying to create a big buffer there to have that separation and make a better feel going into the development. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Maui, questions, comments?
I do not have any questions or comments. Thank you.
Mr. Johns, questions or comments?
No questions, no comments.
Mr. Horke, questions or comments?
Ditto. No questions, no comments.
Ms. Berkman, questions or comments?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for adding the playground. That was one of my questions. And then I guess I will just second what Cindy said, that I do feel like the points about the 3-foot brick wrap in the one section, and I understand it because I talked to staff earlier today that that's only applying to those homes with the perimeter requirements, I believe, but that is confusing. And so and then it's down in the point system. I just want to also say, however, Mrs. Spalgeric can work that out, I would support her on that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Kelleher, questions or comments?
Yes, I agree with Cindy and Kristen. I think Dries builds a nice home. I am concerned that this point system for the front building facade requirements has a whole lot of things in it that many are important and would make a difference in the appearance of a home. Others are fairly minor. For example, you could have a garage door you have to pick 3. You could have a garage door containing decorative windows and 2 garage doors. Both of those would be a point, and you'd only have to do one more thing to make the front of the home interesting. I think that list needs to be narrowed down, and some of those things either combined together to be 1 point. Otherwise, we could have 2 garage doors with some glass windows and some shutters, and absolutely not much else on the front. And that's not the kind of home that Dries builds, I know that, but this is an ordinance that is written for whoever might build it. Hopefully it will be Dries, but in the event that it doesn't end up being them, I think that this list is too long with too many less consequential things being added as a point. So I would be happy if Cindy and maybe Mr. Johns could work on that if the petitioner would be willing.
We can even make it easier on you than that. I mean, if you wanted to replicate what's in Wilshire, we can just do for the fronts of the homes. We can just do it. I mean, we're going to build the same house. It's just we were trying to create additional flexibility for for streetscape diversity. But I mean, we're probably going to build the same house anyway. So I mean, we could just comply with the front building facade requirements of Wilshire.
Sure, and I don't know what those requirements were, Matt, so I don't want to commit to that. I think that probably Cindy would be the best person to work with on that. If it's simply changing to Wilshire or if it's modifying what you have, I'll leave it up to Cindy and Mr. Johns and you and Dries to sort that out.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Once again, we're at the end of the roll. I'll entertain a motion at this time. Anybody?
Yeah, this is Mike Johns. I move that we approve ordinance number 20-38.
Actually, it's a recommendation of City Council, sir.
Okay. That we send it forth as a recommendation to the City Council with our approval.
Do I have a second?
It's Smith, I'll second.
I have a motion made by Mr. Johns, seconded by Mr. Schmitz, to send 2010-PUD-13 Caramore PUD to the City Council with a positive recommendation. Will staff please call the roll?
Mr. Johns?
Yes.
Dr. Kelleher?
Yes.
Mr. Maui?
Yes.
Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz?
Yes.
Ms. Boljarek?
Yes.
Ms. Bergman?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Horkay?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, folks.
Thanks, Mr. Skelton. I'll let screen catch up here for a minute. All right, coming up next is our final item of business this evening. 2011-ODP-17, and 2011-SPP-17 Chatham Village Phase 1 Amendment.
Good evening, Commission. For the record, I am Corey Harris of the Community Development Department. The item before you is the overall development plan and primary plat amendment for Phase 1 Chatham Villages. This is for 108 lots in one block on approximately 190 acres east of Tomlinson Road, west of US 31, south of 203rd Street, and north of 196th Street in the Chatham Hills PUD District. This item received its public hearing at the November 4th Plan Commission meeting. As the plans are shown are compliant and all the applicable standards. If there are no concerns from the public or Plan Commission, staff recommends approval of the overall development plan and primary plat amendment this evening with the condition listed at the end of the staff report. Phil Sunling of Hinkie Development Group is present to answer any questions, and I am available for questions for staff.
Thank you. Dr. Kelleher, any questions or comments?
None. Thank you.
Ms. Berkman, questions or comments?
No, thank you.
Mr. Horke, questions or comments?
No questions and no comments.
Mr. Johns, questions or comments?
No questions, no comments.
Mr. Maui, questions or comments?
I have none, thank you.
Mr. McCarty, questions or comments?
None, thank you.
Mr. Schmitz, questions or comments?
None from me, thank you.
Ms. Spoljaric, questions or comments?
No, thank you, Randy.
Well, since there is no discussion, Randall Graham will make a motion to approve 2011-ODP-17, 2011-SPP-17, Chatham Village Phase 1 Amendment with the following condition: that all necessary approvals be obtained from the Westfield Public Works Department and the Hamilton County Surveyors prior to the issuance of an improvement location permit. Do I have a second?
Victor will second.
Have a motion made by Randall Graham, seconded by Mr. McCarty, to approve 2011 ODP-17, 2011 SPP-17, Chatham Village Phase 1 Amendment with the noted condition. Will the staff please call the roll?
Kelleher? Dr. Kelleher?
Oh, didn't hear you. Sorry. Yes.
Mr. Maui?
Yes.
Mr. McCarty?
Yes.
Mr. Schmitz?
Yes.
Ms. Spoljaric?
Yes.
Ms. Berkman?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Horke?
Yes.
Mr. Johns?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the Planning Commission members? Reports, comments? City Council liaison?
No, nothing to report tonight.
Board of Zoning Appeals?
BZA did meet last week and approved 4 different variants of development standards. 2 were pool location variances in, one was Maple Creek, one was Bridgewater. There was an approval of a side yard setback to accommodate a room addition at 540 North Union Street. Some relief on the side yard setback so they could build the proposed addition to their home. And one item was in an area, Morgan Wood, which predates zoning. So it's classified as AGSF1, even though none of the lots in there are AGSF1 and AGSF1 compliant. A house had burned down some time ago, and the current owner wanted to construct a home there. So we had to approve a variance of standards to permit residential use for that lot. So that was done, and that concluded the meeting. Thanks.
Thank you. Community Development Department, staff have anything?
No, not really. Just wanted to remind everybody until further notice, we'll be doing these virtually again, 100% virtual. So thank you for your patience on that, and hope everybody has a safe and happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Mr. Todd. No further business. Randall Graham will make a motion to adjourn.
Kelleher will second.
Have a motion made by Randall Graham, seconded by Dr. Kelleher to adjourn tonight's meeting. Will the staff please call the roll?
Mr. Maui,
Yes, and happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Mr. McCarty,
Yes, ditto. Happy Thanksgiving and thank you.
Mr. Schmitz,
Yes.
Ms. Boljeric,
Yes, and thank you for you all.
Ms. Berkman,
Yes.
Mr. Graham,
Yes.
Mr. Horke,
Yes.
Mr. Johns,
Yes.
Dr. Kelleher.
Yes.
Adjourned.
Meeting adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.